Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Eagz, and I haven't really done a Shaco guide in fucking ages, mainly because I haven't played the last couple of seasons. But I'm back on the Shack, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you what I think the best runes and builds are for both AD and AP Shaco, and I'll also talk to you about your early clears and how to actually jungle in the early game, and we'll finish off with some Q spots that all of you, just have to know about. And just a quick plug here, if you are interested in actual Challenger coaching, and I've coached a bunch of high elo Shaco players from around the world as well, then my Patreon is linked down below. You can also join my Discord for updates on video uploads when I go live on Twitch, all that good stuff. And yeah, let's get into it. So we'll start with Chad AD Shaco. So this is my only rune page at the moment, and I've tested a bunch of combinations out, so let me explain why this is my fave. So Halo Blades you need in Season 12 because attacking quickly with all the damage you will build, it's essential. Also, like Dark Harvest and Electrocute, they have been changed and nerfed so much since Season 8 and are just trash at the moment, so please don't use either of these. Now, Sudden Impact, because of the buff in 12-14, makes it even nicer, but yeah, it's the only choice out of these three for AD Shaco as well, because your damage is going to happen after you use your Q, right? And this damage will be amplified by a Sudden Impact. Now, Eyeball Collection, because it's easy to stack, no reason to go any other choice here. And then Relentless Hunter, for me anyway, because movement speed, I feel, is just crucial. You can go Treasure Hunter, like if you think the game is going to have a bunch of kills in it, so both supports might be like hard engagers, both top laners might be strong early game champions fighting a lot, but for me, Relentless Hunter, it will just always work. Now, your secondary tree, you might have a few options, but I believe these to be the best. So Alacrity, because this will be the only source of attack speed outside the attack speed we take in our minor runes. And then I take Coup de Grace. So even though it has been nerfed a fair bit, I take it because it increases our chances of one-shotting enemies, and it also enhances our execute damage in our 2-shiv poison. Now you can consider changing these and going for something like Transcendence in Gathering Storm, Absolute Focus in Gathering Storm, maybe even something with Futures Market and Cosmic Insight. This might work, but for me, I just love going Lucidity Boots in my items, which we'll get into very soon, because they're cheaper than Berserker's Greaves, and Alacrity is all I need for attack speed. Now, minor runes, very standard. You want attack speed, adaptive force, and you can take armor if the enemy jungler is AD, or magic resist if the enemy jungler is AP. And these minor runes are exactly the same for AP Shaco as well. Now for your items on AD Shaco, so my build goes like this. Ember Knife with a refillable potion and obviously a trinket. Then Serrated Dirk, Boots, Sheen, Essence Reaver, and then I finish Eclipse. So let me explain all of this. So Ember Knife, because it allows you to 1v1 anyone. Red Smite is just still too OP, even though it did get nerfed, and being able to 1v1 anyone is super important. That's how I feel anyway. Now the reason I buy a Dirk and then just sit on it is because the lethality we get is easily enough to kill people in the early game. We don't need more than that. Then after this, I get a Sheen and build it into Essence Reaver. So it's pretty much the Draven build at the moment. And I just think this is a bigger spike than anything else you can get at that stage in a game. And yes, I do not go Dustblade. I've tested Dustblade a lot, and for me, the armor pen from Eclipse is just too good. Yes, the haste from Dustblade is nice, and also just the auto attack damage, right, when you come out of your stealth, but Eclipse gives you better scaling. And for any champion you can one-shot with Dustblade, you can do exactly the same. You can still one-shot them with Eclipse as well. Now for my boots, Lucidity Boots, why? Just ability haste. I don't need attack speed because I have Alacrity, and I also have Halo Blades. It just feels like overkill to go Berserker's Greaves and a waste of gold. Now after this, Lord Dominic's Regards. The armor pen and the crit, it's juicy, and even bruisers with steel caps and tanks with tank mythics, you can shred them pretty easily. Then I like to get Infinity Edge. This activates the 60% crit passive and is the biggest damage spike in the game. It's also the most fun. And to finish the build off, it really just depends on what the enemy team is building and whether you can already one-shot the key targets. So if you feel as if you have enough damage after Infinity Edge, which should be the case in most games, items like Frozen Heart, Randuin's Omen, More Malmortius, Guardian's Angel, even Anathema's Chains, you can actually build these to cuck the enemy champions, particularly those who are fed. But in most games, Guardian's Angel will be your 6th item. Now I know lots of people might be going Bork because Chase has really popularized it, but Bork for me, you're spending 3,300 gold on attack speed lifesteal and on hit. I don't really consider these to be important stats on Shaco. Again, this is just my opinion. So of course, lots of people probably won't agree with me here, but yeah, I just feel like it's a waste of gold. I'd much rather just build straight up damage. I already have attack speed from Halo Blade's Alacrity to do what I need to do. Now, what about runes and builds for AP Shaco? So as far as keystones go, Dark Harvest. Nothing else makes sense. Then I prefer taking Sudden Impact because of the buff in 12-14. I actually think you can feel a diff in terms of damage. And because of all the ability haste you'll have, you will be be queuing a lot, but you can take Cheap Shot if you prefer. Then Eyeball Collection, still because it's easy to stack, and then Ultimate Hunter, I think this is necessary. Without your ultimate, you are pretty useless, and there is generally a play to be made each time you have your ultimate come off cooldown. Now your secondary tree, for me, Transcendence, Gathering Storm. This is not going to change because Transcendence equals ability haste and Gathering Storm equals scaling. AP Shaco, and you could even argue for AD Shaco, you're a scaling champion. It's not like how it was back in the day where you mess with the enemy jungle and every lane is terrified of you appearing behind them. I mean, that is still a threat, but you catch my drift. All the other runes have been nerfed too much for me to actually like. So whether it's Celerity, Water Walking, Nimbus Cloak is interesting, but that's about it. I don't think it's any good. And you could consider going Futures Market with Cosmic Insight, and it doesn't actually sound too bad for AP Shaco, but the haste and scaling you get from Transcendence and Gathering Storm, too valuable. Now for the AP build. So start with a Hail Blade, no Ember Knife, because Hail Blade procs our Dark Harvest, and the slow is also useful to kite enemy champions and catch up to them. Now as for your core items, so Liandra's Anguish and Lucidity Boots are always your first two items. They give you a ton of ability haste, which is central to the AP playstyle. Then it gets interesting, right? Because you have a variety of options. So in most games, I will get a Cosmic Drive afterwards, but in some games you might be against a lot of bruisers or tanks, and in those you can get a Demonic Embrace instead. In other games you might be against a full AD team, or a team that has a lot of skill shots or dive potential. In these games, getting a Stopwatch and then a Zhonya's Hourglass will be better. So it really depends. Other items you should be interested in include Banshee's Veil, Morellonomicon, Rabadon's Death Cap if you're uber fed and the enemy team has no magic resist, Void Staff if they have magic resist sticking out of their ears, and you can get an early Dark Seal and turn that into a Magi's if you are ridiculously farmed. So make sure you press tab and build accordingly. Now for the Shaco clears, I'm going to show you three. Number one, Red and Raptors. All of you should be familiar with this by now, but just in case you're not, you start by placing your first box to block the entrance to your red buff jungle. This way you will get notified if any blokes wander in. I also like to ward this area because it will let me know if the enemy mid laner wards. This is useful because if they don't ward, you can consider ganking them after red buff. Now for your next box, wait until the game time is at 0050 and place it where I do. Then your next box, place it where I do as soon as it comes off cooldown. Same with the third box. Now getting a leash or not, doesn't really matter. Backstab the red buff as much as you can, place your next box on the red buff, and when the big raptor, this is important, is about to make a run at you, run towards it and last hit it. Return back to the red buff and finish the job. That's the clear, and I know what you're thinking. Why not do Krugs and then gank bot? Why not go to Gromp? Listen very carefully, because this is the most important bit of information in this video. You have to react to the map in that game you're in. If bot lane is pushing towards you after you finish red buff, for sure, do Krugs and look to gank, but keep your eyes on the enemy bot lane as you're doing your camps to make sure they haven't warded your gank route. If mid lane is pushing towards you, or they have a melee mid laner like a Yone, a Sylas, for sure, look to gank after red buff. If you know the enemy jungler started at their red buff, you can sneak your way to their Gromp and take it to hit level 3. If top lane is already fighting at level 1, you can run straight to your own Gromp to get there quickly. It completely depends on what the map is telling you, and that's what Challenger jungling is. Just another important detail here, as AD Shaco you have a lot more power in the early game than AP Shaco, so I would be very careful about invading as AP Shaco. You are probably better off clearing one side of your jungle so you hit level 3 no worries, and then you can react to the map. Now clear number 2, the Eagz clear. So you're doing red and raptors like we just did. Now as soon as you finish off red buff, queue towards your wolf camp. Place a box in the middle of the camp and auto attack the close wolf once, then the far wolf twice, and then the close wolf one more time. Both of these small wolves will now die, so what you're going to do is queue over to the blast cone and backstab blue buff as much as possible. Place your box down as soon as you can, and you have hit level 3 with both buffs quicker than any other champion can do in the entire game. Couple of points here, you only need the 2 small wolves to hit level 3 after blue buff. You don't need the big one, so don't worry about clearing that, and the reason this clear is so deadly is because you can get behind the enemy lanes before they typically start warding. And I also really like it because blue buff early game on Shaco feels really nice when you're looking to make plays, because sometimes you do need that extra bit of ability haste to get kills or get out of sticky situations. Now clear number 3, the blue buff clear. Now in some games, or most games depending on your elo I guess, the enemy team will invade you at level 1 and will try to disrupt your box setup at your raptor camp. So here's what I do against strong level 1 teams. So the enemy team might have a Nautilus, a Pike, a Blitzcrank, a Braum, a Graves, a Kindred. So at a base, I run to my blue buff side, knowing this will probably happen. I then place a box outside this alleyway. Then I go back to my wolf camp and I place my first box at the base of the camp at 0050, the same timer as the raptor camp. Now the next one I place on the outskirts of the camp, and this is important because this will draw the aggro of the big wolf. This makes it very easy to backstab the big fella. Now your third box, place in the blue buff brush ASAP. Then stand at the base of the wolf camp and backstab the big wolf. The small ones will die to your boxes. When your W comes off cooldown again, place it immediately and run towards your blue when you know that box will finish off the big wolf. Then level up your Q of your hotkey and Q over to the blue buff immediately, backstabbing it twice. Then drag it towards your box in the brush. Now you still want to backstab as much as you can here, and when your box comes off cooldown, place it straight away. Once you have finished blue buff, Q towards Gromp and backstab the toad. Try to do this as much as possible and then place your box off cooldown. You can also smite Gromp, and there you have it, a very quick and clean blue buff clear. Once again, with all of these clears, I have just given you the foundation if you like. It's your job to figure out what to do after that in terms of ganking, farming, and just where to be. Of course, I can help you with this process. Patreon links are down below. Sorry, it's just shameless at this point. Now for the Q spots, and I'm going to show you 5. So spot number 1, the V jump. If you want to gank bot lane, this is a must know. So all you're going to do is right click and there's a V in the wall. Then you're going to move your map down and hover your cursor over these purple pinky petals. Then press Q. You will avoid the tower's vision and GG enemy bot goes boom. Now spot number 2, exactly the same but topside, the pattern jump. So right click over this blue pattern in the wall, then look for this rock tip. The same as I do, it's just above the 3 leaves sticking out of the wall. Then press Q. Spot number 3, the bot river jump. So you're going to click in this little crevice in the wall, then you're going to hover your mouse anywhere from the middle of this rock in the waterfall to the rock to the right of the waterfall. Then press Q. Now spot number 4, the top river jump. Click in the top left of the river brush and hover your cursor directly on the other side, then press Q. And last but certainly not least, if you want to cover the whole of the mid lane while invisible, even if you only have 2 seconds in it, click in the top right of this bottom mid brush. Get as close to the wall as you can and then hover your mouse over the top of the wall and then press Q. Now if you guys know any other hidden Q spots, let me know in the comments, and any questions or thoughts you might have on any of the runes, items, clears, feel free to leave them down below as well, and to help me out, a like would be very much appreciated. If there is a demand for these videos, of course I will make more of them, so let me know. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Later.